Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. We are talking all about how to maximize efficiency during this peak season. My name is Shauna Mesher, and this is Steve Resigno. Thanks for joining us today. We are going to be talking all about the world of technicians and scheduling and just kind of efficiencies overall throughout your business this peak season. Steve, you are now the Chief Revenue Officer at Evisys, but prior to this, you spent 20 plus years actually, in the pool and hot tub industry. And I know this topic you have a lot of opinions about. So I'm excited to chat with you today about all of those things.
Awesome.
I have a question to start for you, and my question is, in the pool and hot tub industry, if you were to just pick three things that you really wanted to focus on, minimizing or eliminating, what would those three things be during peak season?
Mm-hmm. Great question. Obviously not just peak season, but throughout the year, we always try to focus on these three things. And they're the profit killers, really, of any service department. They're the things that just kill your profit. And those three things are shop time, drive time, and overtime. Right? So in the peak season particularly, you got a lot of jobs, you got guys and gals out there working long hours, and that overtime can really creep during that season, especially if you don't have high margin revenue tied to that overtime, right? So we kept an eye on that. Shop time is a big one, right? We all know the technicians come in when they come in the morning, they like to get their coffee, they have the water cooler chat, they chat with the folks in the showroom or the warehouse or whatever. And then they leisurely get their items gathered, they get in their van, they take off, and then they go to their first job. So one thing we did that kind of really changed things was rather than have that whole thing go on every morning, is we'd have them prep for their next day the afternoon before. So they come back at the end of the day, they get their stuff ready for the next day. What we found is they don't linger around. They don't chit chat. They want to get their stuff in order for the next day, and they want to go home.
Totally.
So we found that really helped cut down our shop time in a big way. And then certain tools we used in our software obviously helped with drive time. And then, the scheduling for overtime, which I think we'll get into that a little bit later. But those were the three big things for sure: shop time, drive time, and overtime.
Smart.
We focused on that. We really won in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then also, completing the jobs as much as we can the first time out. And I know we'll get into that more as well.
Totally.
So those were the big three, though.
I think that's awesome. I think that that's such a small, simple shift. When we're talking about just shop time in general, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know how to streamline that, or I don't know how to minimize shop time. They have to come in, they have to get their parts. There's things that they have to do in the office.
Absolutely.
But that small shift and just, the behavior of, your staff and just what motivates them and what doesn't motivate them.
At the end of the day, they want to go home.
Heck yeah. They're like, I'm late. I got to get dinner. I'm sweaty. It's hot. Like, I'm done and I want to get home. So they're more motivated. Any of us would be more motivated to get your stuff done.
Right? It's like they're not motivated to get to that first job.
No.
Not as motivated, right? So it's just simple change, like you said.
Yeah. And you don't realize in the morning, especially, how quickly time can get away from you. We've all been there where we just linger a bit too long on something that maybe we should have finished faster. Yeah. And then you realize at the end of the day, like, oh shoot, I could have got those tasks done way faster and I would have been out of here by now. So it's really protecting your technicians,
absolutely,
the company and the client.
They don't want to be out there working all those long hours in the heat.
No.
So absolutely, it's for their benefit as
well. That's really smart. So we will talk a lot about how everything that we talk about today, I think will filter into one of those three categories: minimizing shop time, minimizing drive time, and minimizing overtime. Those are the goals here. And like you said, making sure that when you get out to a job, you can finish the job. And I know I don't know if you made it up but you coined it. It was called a one and done, right?
Yeah, I stole it.
But the best ideas are stolen ideas. Let's just make that very clear here. And with one and dones, can you walk us through how you motivated your team to communicate with each other? Like, because in my mind, one and dones are a product of everybody communicating, everybody being aligned, and everybody working together as a team. So, you know, in your company, the technicians weren't the ones taking the phone calls and scheduling themselves, as I'm sure in most of, you know, the audience of your guys' businesses, that's the same.
Yeah.
So can you walk us through, like, how did you motivate people to communicate with one another and get those technicians out one and done?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, just putting out a plan and expecting folks to execute it at a high level, that doesn't work. So we really incentivized them. So we had a program for our entire service department that was incentivized on non-warranty revenue. So they got a little piece of that, and that made them kind of try to, you know, suggest things when a customer would call in, you know, how are their chemicals, how are their filters, you know, all the things that in the different industries we serve are applicable, you know, whether it's the hearth industry, the pool industry, the hot tub industry, whatever. We try to make sure that was relevant. And then the other thing was we wanted to make sure that we had all the parts we needed on the vehicle when they went out to do the job. So to your point, when the customer calls in, the person answering the phone has to be incentivized to ask the right questions to set the technician up for success, right? So so we had kind of a bonus pool for the non-warranty revenue part of it, but then we take a thing like a one and done and we put a spiff on it, right? So then both parties are incentivized. So the more one and dones we get, we would spiff the people that were, you know, involved in that call.
Smart.
And it really motivated them. It got it top of mind for them, and it really took that number up for us. It really moved the needle on that.
Yeah.
And then that's, you know, one and done. You don't have to go back. We were really big on taking that extra few minutes before we left the warehouse to make sure we had all the product, because if you go out there and you forget one item and you got to, you know, the drive, now you're talking shop time, drive time, and overtime all come into play in a bad way. Right?
Yeah.
So, you know, focusing on that one and done was big for us.
Yeah. And that's such a simple thing, right? Just do you have the right products on your vehicle? Do you have the parts? Do you have the supplies? Do you have everything you need to get the job done? And that sounds like a really simple concept, and it is, but it takes a few steps along the way to make sure that you have the right things. And we're going to walk through that today, and just how, you know, a software can help you make sure that you have all of the right items on your vehicle. So I think I'd love to walk through, Lou has a lot of these capabilities. So first we'll walk through something called a pick list. That's a Lou word. Essentially, it's just a list of items that you need to complete the job. So we're going to walk through that in Lou now. And we're going to talk really quickly about pick lists. So this is what an order looks like. We just have kind of a makeshift order here. And we're going to scroll down to the bottom. We've got some SKUs. So right now we'll just pretend this is a hot tub company, and we're pulling SKUs for an Aria spa that needs to go out. And we're going to go ahead and create a pick list off of this. Perfect. We're going to go to pick lists. And it says we need 11 SKUs to pull out of our Beaverton showroom. We'll say yes, we want to start the pick list. Takes a minute to load. Perfect. So that is, that's how you create the pick list. And then we need to go to the warehouse tile. The pick list has been created. So now we need to go, and the person pulling the parts is typically somebody in the warehouse. So that option lives in our warehouse tile. We're going to go in there, and we're going to look at pick lists. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to look at this first pick list here. This is just an example. In a normal world, you would probably print this. You can, if you're fully digital, you could do it digitally if you wanted to, but we're going to click print today. And this is an example. So you see on the right-hand side where it says filled. Now, Steve, I know you have a pretty strong opinion about how people should check parts out and take them out of the warehouse. So what is your like tangible tip for that?
Well, we were big on it, and this was really a manual thing that then transcribed into the software, but it was a double check system. And it was as simple as you take that box on the right side, and the person that was going to pull the items off the shelf would simply put a hash mark through that box. And at the bottom of the sheet, they just put their initials. And then someone would double check that part. A different person would then make that an X, meaning that it's been fully filled. And then they would put their initials. So you end up with an X and two sets of initials. And it's really more just the psychology of them doing that step.
Yeah.
And then having the discipline to make sure it's happening. And really taking that extra few minutes saves you hours if you've got the wrong part. I mean, I've got nightmare stories of taking the wrong color hot tub 45 miles away from the warehouse, getting out there, unwrapping it, realizing it's the wrong color. And, you know, talk about money and time there. Total profit killer.
Imagine driving from the valley to the coast, 2.5-hour drive, and you only go out there once every 2 weeks, and you've got the wrong cover, you know, or something so simple that just derails the whole job.
Yeah, exactly. It just makes a bad customer experience.
Yeah.
So exactly.
Yeah. Talk about being super inefficient. This is a great way, and I'm sure you guys created the double check system because of many errors along the way.
Everything we did, we learned the wrong way first.
Yeah, so really simple on this. You just print, you know, you can physically print it or you can do it virtually. Physically printing is ideal for this double check system. And I think there's something good about just having a tangible piece of paper and just doing that one hash mark through each. And then that second person, a warehouse manager, a service manager, comes behind and they just double check and they turn that hash into an X, and that text on the road, good to go. So super awesome. So now we know that the technician has what they need on their van, but how do we know that we have what we need in the warehouse, right? That's a big problem often.
Great question.
So in Lou, there's something called reorder alerts, and reorder alerts are fantastic for setting yourself up for success in the long run. Again, a lot of the things we're talking about today, Steve, are a bit more time on the front end, but saving you time on the back end.
Absolutely.
And I know that that's sometimes hard, and it's especially hard to want to make that decision during peak season, during your busy time. But you have to start with the end in mind, right? And know that we're going to do a little bit more work on the front end, but it's going to make the process smoother. It's going to make for a better customer experience. It's just going to be better overall. So reorder alerts are really helpful. We'll show you right now just a chlorine SKU, for instance, and we'll show you what reorder alerts look like. So you just go into the SKU profile, and then you're going to scroll down, and it is what it says it is. We're going to go to reorder alerts, a little green bell tile. And this is an example of a reorder alert. So reorder alerts are by SKU. You as a company know when and how much of a product you need. If you don't, you can always pull reporting out of Lou to tell you what you're selling, how often you're selling it, how much of it you're selling, and then create reorder alerts off of that. My hot tip for reorder alerts is to revisit it minimum every year, but ideally every 6 months, and just look, is that product that we've been selling a lot of still popular? Or maybe did people switch from selling the 2-pound to selling the 5-pound, right? Like, did we shift that? Did our sales approach shift? Do people want different things? So double
great point. That. With all these different systems coming out as technology improves in these industries, then the water care can change, and so you don't want to end up with a bunch of stuff that's kind of becoming outdated. So it helps you keep an eye on that.
Totally. And I know as a company we shifted at one point. We were like, why don't we just try to push the 5-pound instead of the 2-pound? Why don't we just put the 5-pound out on the shelf, and then the 2-pound is an optional, they have to ask for it kind of thing? Or do you have a smaller size? And the answer is yes, but we don't show it, and so we didn't sell as much of it. So we did have to shift that at one point. So reorder alerts are here. It's basically, you'll hear people refer to it as a max, the minimum quantity, and a maximum quantity. When you get to a minimum quantity, it sends you an alert that tells you you need to order up to this maximum quantity. Really cool. It's by month. So if you have something that's a bit more seasonal in product, you can make sure you only have it in the season that you're selling it. And then you can just uncheck the box for the months that you don't need it. So this reorder alerts are really helpful. If you have your vehicle set up as stock sites, you can have reorder alerts for your vehicles, right?
Yeah.
And my suggestion, I think you would agree, is to keep case quantities on your vehicles.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
No onesie twosies, right?
Yeah, our technicians rolled with only the big sizes. If they wanted a smaller portion, they could drive into the showroom or get on our e-store or something like that. But yeah, we wanted to case quantities in the vans and then create reorder alerts for the van, to your point. So they always made sure they had it on there.
Yeah. Yeah. When you have, I'm just going to have a couple bottles of chlorine or a couple bottles of shock, it's not conducive. And then those techs are refilling their vans often. So case quantities, best practice, just making sure you have the bulk of the items that you sell a lot of. So that's awesome. So now we know, for efficiency's sake, that, we have reorder alerts. We know that we have what we need in the warehouse and in the vans. It's all kind of automated in that way. My next question is how do we streamline communication from the call staff or the people answering the phone to the technician, right? There's got to be a tool for that. There has to be a series of questions. And I know you can do this either on paper or you can do it a bit more efficiently, within Lou, within the software. But this is something that it was a non-negotiable for you. Can you walk us through like the questions and your theory behind questions that somebody answering the phone should ask and maybe shouldn't ask, and what your thought process is on that?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, this kind of came about because we were running into challenges when people would call in. Sometimes we'd over troubleshoot things, right? Even someone answering the phone would grab a technician walking by, and then it became this telephone game. Like the technician was giving troubleshooting advice to the person on the phone, who was then translating it to the customer, and then the customer, it just became this thing, right?
Yeah.
So we started like what we call interview questions, right? So when they call in, there's certain questions we want to ask the customer to know whether or not we want to dispatch a technician, right?
Smart.
Because we've gone out there for a hot tub, for example, we flipped on a breaker. And then, they don't want to pay the call out charge for just coming out to flip a breaker, rinse a filter, turn on a pump or a filter in a pool or something like that. So we'd ask these questions on the phone. And the nice thing about the software is when you ask the questions and put in the answers, the technician now has access to that out in the field.
Wow.
So he or she's walking in with more information, and it just makes that communication, makes us look more professional, makes the customer look like we're all on the same page. And it really helps. It's really great too when you hire new people that are taking service calls. It's really a great guide for them to learn to make sure to ask these questions every time someone calls.
Yeah, what I love too about interview questions is that people need to follow the script, right? You can't have people going rogue.
Right.
It really forces people to stick within the parameters, because in my experience, sometimes we think that we are more technical than maybe we are, right? We've all made that mistake a time or two, and then the customer on the phone starts really pushing you and asking you questions that are outside of your wheelhouse. But because you put on a face and because you went off script, they think that you should know more than you do, right? Because they're misrepresenting who you are for the company. You aren't the technician. Your skill set is different. So the interview questions really help people to stay within the means of their job. It helps them. I hate to use the word efficient again, but it does help them to be more efficient and get on to the next customer and answer that next phone call. Just answer those questions. So in Lou, we'll show you, customer calls in and my hot tub's not heating. So let's look at what maybe that interview question looks like. So this is an interview that we've created in a test database. They can be whatever you want them to be, but you have some options here, which I find really, really awesome. And first questions like, what's the make and model of your hot tub? You can free type in the answer. Maybe it's an aria. And then from there, you have yes or no or don't know. So you can just check boxes if you prefer that method. Or there's even ways where you can just have like a yes or no checkbox. So you have options on how you want to just display the interview, whether you want to have buttons and force them to select certain answers, or if you want to free type in answers. It's really customizable, which I think is awesome because no two businesses are the same.
Exactly.
No two series of interviews is going to be the exact same. So, and then like Steve said, once you save that, then that will populate over onto our service companion app, our schedule app, so that the technician, when they're out in the field, can see exactly what they asked on the phone. And that communication is really streamlined, and we just look like the pros that we are. So that's an interview, and that's how we know that communication's, flowing back and forth really seamlessly. You mentioned new people maybe answering the phone, not knowing what to ask in interviews being helpful. But what about new technicians out in the field? I know that is huge, right? Like it is hard to hire people right now, always has been, but it's like especially hard right now. People just, for some reason, a lot of people don't want to do labor. And so I know, you guys are having a hard time hiring people, retaining people. And you spend a lot of time training these folks. So is there a tool within Lou or just in general that would help you sort of like an interview before a tech out in the field, like a checklist of sorts?
Yeah. I mean, we started this years ago with paper, right? It was just kind of this, when we go out and do a service call on a hot tub or a pool, we'd leave behind kind of a 21-point inspection, if you will. And then that kind of morphed into a checklist. And as we hired new folks and, you're trying to get them trained up for the season, we started using actual checklists. And so, for example, like with a pool opening, there's a lot of steps to a pool opening or a pool closing. And so you got your veterans out there that can do it in their sleep with one hand tied behind their back, right? But these newer folks, really benefit from this checklist.
Yeah.
And then the nice thing is with the software, with this checklist incorporated, you can actually send it to your customer, and then it shows them all the steps that your technician did while they were on site. It's a great, great tool. We used it a lot because, unfortunately, today's age with all these Ring cameras and stuff, you get a phone call and say, hey, your technician was out here for 10 minutes and the only thing I saw him do is smoke a cigarette on my camera. And,
they were just sitting in their van in the driveway for 20 minutes.
And not that we want to get into an argument with the customer, of course, but at least we know that we did these steps and we feel good about what we did.
And it gives you a leg to stand on, right? Especially with pools that are open, right? It's like that you guys were out there, you spent all this time making the pool immaculate and beautiful, and then the wind blows and you've got all these leaks in the pool, right after you've left. How frustrating is that? So these checklists
and pictures are key for those type of situations.
Absolutely. So if you wanted to do a checklist on an order, we'll just kind of show you what that looks like for a pool opening. This is a checklist that's been done on the app, and this is what it will look like when it's finished. It can be as many or as few questions as you want. And it can be literally like, did you, drain the water and remove the debris from the winter cover? You can be as detailed as you want to be, or as lackadaisical. It's pretty customizable. So those checklists are awesome for just efficiencies, and the less time that your techs need to spend out there thinking and wondering and phoning a friend, right? Because just like you said, the veterans are out there, they can do it with their hands tied behind their back. How many times do you have a junior technician calling those senior techs?
All day long.
They're like, I talked to Jimmy 12 times today.
Someone needs to train him.
And it's like, well, you're the guy that's going to train him. But no, it's like this software really can be a training tool, which is so awesome. So awesome. And checklists can be plentiful. There are plenty of them. You can create them. You can have a lot or a little. Again, customizable is the word I want you all to remember when it comes to checklists. So the last thing I want to talk to you about, Steve, today is drive time. Drive time's a big deal. I don't know of a state left that doesn't have traffic, and doesn't have traffic all day.
Right.
Like there's no rush hour anymore. It's just all day traffic, and fuel is expensive. So minimizing drive time, I think now is more important than ever. It's always been important, but now with oh my gosh, you can't buy vehicles, gas is expensive, all of it. So how do we minimize drive time? How have you seen it be successful in the past? And what are some of the pitfalls that we can kind of run into when we're dealing with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's always been a challenge. Obviously, everyone knows their market and the traffic patterns. And, with technology the way it is today, there's a lot of great tools out in the world that help with that. Obviously, the, mapping softwares, Google, all that stuff. So really, it's about if making your route as efficient as possible or optimizing your route. So back in the day, the guys and gals would come in, they'd see all their jobs and they kind of route themselves on our whiteboard, if you will.
Yeah.
And, they were using the Rand McNally flip map thing back in the day before.
And then it was MapQuest.
Yes, exactly. And so it kind of is evolved into what it is today. And what it is today is really cool because it actually is built-in software, right?
Yeah.
It's built-in Lou. It integrates with Google. So there's actually a feature to help you with this and optimize your route so that you are cutting down in your drive time. And that's key.
Yeah.
You want to do the most efficient route as you can.
Totally. So it's super simple in Lou. There's a lot of ways you can navigate to it, but today we'll just click on My Day. All of the jobs, we'll pretend that this is a technician or somebody, a service manager maybe that's going to look at every technician's jobs for the day. Here are all of them listed out. We're going to just go to click on Map My Day. And this gives you all of your jobs on a map. And like Steve said, it's all integrated with Google, so it's accurate. You can drill down. You can even drill down on the satellite view and look at homes if you wanted to. But you can see there that the driving distance, the way that the jobs are spelled out on the schedule, is going to take you about 97 miles. If you click on Optimize Route, that took us down to 76 miles, and it put our route in the most optimal driving pattern and moved those jobs around. So this is exactly what most technicians are trying to do on paper or manually. And that literally took us, 2-3 seconds to optimize? I mean, your service manager just goes in every morning, boom, 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 optimizes their 5 techs for the day, and out they go. Yeah. And that now is once your tech on the app, the companion app, once they just hit sync, all those jobs are going to be in the right order and they can go. They're off for the day.
And then on their map, they can actually click the thing and it routes them right to the job. So it's all
opens their nav. Yeah.
Hands free.
I love it. So I think that's it. Gosh, did I miss? That's
a lot.
5 ways to gain efficiencies plus all of the knowledge you dropped today. So thank you for that. I'm going to open it up to our panelists. Shannon, do we have any questions out there from the audience?
Reorder alerts. Can we change them for seasonality?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Steve, we want to answer that?
Yeah. So, say there's a certain item that you sell a certain time of year, you don't sell as much a different time of year. You can actually take that one item and set up 2 reorder alerts, right? So you could have reorder alerts for your season where you want to bring in a lot and carry a lot. And then off season, you could have another reorder alert that really ratchets those amounts down so that you're more lean during those. Yeah. And then you have it ramp up when you need it. So it's pretty cool. Once you, again, taking that time to set it up on the front end is just going to save you a ton of time on the back end.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways to do that, right? Like you said, you can either have more in your busy season and less in your off season, or you can have the one reorder alert that's just on in your busy season and you completely, discontinue, if you will, that product in your off season. So again, it is however your business runs, reorder alerts will pretty much work for that. So Great question, Shannon. Anything else out there?
Awesome. Yeah, we do have a question just asking, is there any information on making recurring orders efficient, not only for the field techs, but for the office staff?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things built in for sure. The scheduling, the way that they're scheduled in Lou is really an efficient way. Again, that you set it up on the front end the way you want it, it flows through seamlessly. And then also on the back end, when the job's complete, there's some mass invoicing features and some mass payment features in there. So all the route type things you have on reoccurring orders can actually be kind of processed in bulk, if you will.
Yeah, awesome. Good question. Anything else, Shannon?
I don't have anything else right now.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I want to say thank you to everybody joining us today. If you enjoy these webinars, we would love to hear about it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any requests for upcoming webinars, we'd also love to do that as well. So let us know your feedback. And next month, we are talking all about mastering your sales on the go. We know that you guys are in, oh gosh, it's fair season, it's tent sale season, it's all of the offsite sale season. So we're really going to be talking all about how you can take your sales process anywhere with you. So that's going to be super exciting webinar all about. Today was a lot about technicians and service, and next month's going to be all about sales, front end retail. So join us for that. It is on July 17th, 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, same place, and we will see you then. Thanks so much. Have a good one.